Good morning, everybody. Why don't we get this started? My name is Jonathan Butler, and I'm the president and CEO of One Berkshire. And this morning, I'll be the moderator for our illustrious panel that we have assembled. We have a great group this morning that's going to talk a little bit about historical sites and museums in the Berkshires and what to expect this summer as we slowly make our way into brighter pastures past this pandemic. This event should run about an hour. We're going to do about 45 minutes of Q&A with our panel, and then conversation with our panel, and then we'll transition to some questions from our listeners. I want to remind everybody that this session's being recorded, and there's also closed captioning available via transcript. It's also being simulcast on Pittsfield Community Television. And after this event, this webinar will be made available through our social media pages and websites and shared elsewhere for other listeners. For those of you that are listening, thank you for taking the time to join us. I will remind all of you that you can submit questions either through the Q&A function at the bottom of your webinar box or through the chat function. And we'll be kind of sifting through those as the conversation goes along, and then we'll save some time at the end for all of those. So without further ado, I'd like to get started. This is the second piece in a multi-part series that we're doing focused on what to expect in this 2020 summer in the Berkshires and as we head into the fall. Or 2021 summer in the Berkshires and as we head into the fall. Obviously, things feel very different right now than they did a year ago, and we have some cause for optimism, especially with recent announcements from the CDC and coming announcements from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But we really do believe that the 2021 season is going to look a lot more like 2019 than 2020, and we're excited about that. But it's also important that we remain responsible and diligent. And today we're going to hear how some of those things are happening at some of our key institutions in the Berkshires. So what I'd like to do is ask all of our panelists to just take a moment and introduce themselves and their institution. And why don't we start with Susan?
Yes, good morning, Jonathan, and thanks for including me in this illustrious panel. And my name is Susan Wissler, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mount, which is the home created by American author Edith Wharton in 1902. And it's a National Historic Landmark, but we also produce a lot of activities throughout the summer. Everything from dance to music to lectures, you name it, we do it. So.
Great, well, thank you for joining us this morning, Susan. Laurie.
Hi, good morning, Jonathan and everyone who's tuned in. Nice to be with you on this beautiful May day. I'm the CEO of Rockwell Museum in Stockbridge, and we're delighted that we've been open since last July and have been able to have a safe and healthy year. We're very much looking forward to our summer, where we will be installing a new exhibition, really fun exhibit on fantasy art. The first ever, we believe, that is looking at the history of fantasy art right on up to today's incredible illustrators and creators. And we think this is a wonderful season to escape the confines of our homes and the fears of the pandemic. And so we'll also be accompanying that with an outdoor sculpture exhibition by also focused on fantasy by regional sculptors. And so come on by. It's going to be a wonderful summer. As Jonathan said, things are opening up and we're anticipating a really nice season.
Great. Well, that's very exciting. I think many of us are excited to get back to the grounds and inside the Norman Rockwell Museum. We'll turn it to Sue.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sue Killam. I'm currently the Interim Deputy Director of MoCA, but also the Director of Performing Arts at MoCA. MoCA is a large contemporary art center comprised of visual arts, performing arts, education, programming. We are excited for this summer. We have also been open almost in our year of reopening. And we're looking forward to a summer of visitation, new exhibitions where we're going to open the James Turrell Sky Space on Memorial Day weekend. So we're excited to bring people to see that. We expect that to be a big hit, as well as having our performing arts programming back in the summer outdoors. So we have some exciting things happening, and we are looking forward to welcoming so many people from the community and tourists and visitors, and hope that we all have a great summer.
Great, thank you, Sue. And we'll come back to all of you too in a few minutes to hear some more about those exciting things happening at your institutions. We'll turn it to Olivier.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Olivier Meslay. I'm the Hardiman Director of the Clark Art Institute. The Clark Art Institute has been funded in 1955. And we are at the same time a museum, an exhibition space, a teaching institution, and we are also having residencies for art historians. We reopened, as Laurie said, for the Norman Rockwell and same for MoCA. We reopened in July last year, and we have reopened fully in terms of each of the components of the Clark has been reopened. The galleries, the library, the grad program, and we're also very lucky to have an exhibition, an outdoor exhibition, which has been, it was the first one, which has been extremely successful for our visitation. And we, in fact, double or triple our attendance on the grounds during this period, I mean, which was a sort of counterintuitive moment for us. And we opened our first exhibition for the summer Monday.
Thank you for that, Olivier. And I think it's worth noting that, you know, so many of your properties have wonderful outdoor grounds, you know, hiking trails, open spaces. And I think it's important to note that that's been a therapeutic asset to many of us that live in the Berkshires and visit the Berkshires throughout this entire experience. Turn it over to Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Rodgers. I'm director at the Berkshire Museum in Pittsfield, an interdisciplinary museum that focuses on the arts, natural history, local history, antiquities. And we've been open all summer, and we are looking forward to opening more this summer. We'll save some of the exciting stuff that we have coming up for this summer for a little bit later on in the talk. But we've enjoyed a steady flow of visitation throughout the pandemic. We've been able to do it safely through reservations and move people through to enjoy our aquarium, our exhibitions on the first floor. And we're really excited to be opening our second floor new gallery spaces this summer, which I'll tell you some more about as we get further on in our talk.
Well, great. This is a great group. Some of our absolute key anchor institutions in the Berkshires, and a lot of variety, you know, of programming that comes from your institutions collectively. So let's talk a little bit about that. You know, there's plenty of time to talk a little bit about the pandemic and how we're still facing some guidelines and the like, but I think people are eager to hear what's happening on your properties. You know, all of you have generally been able to operate, at least to some extent, throughout the past year, but have had to do it in a very different footprint. And you've exercised great creativity in doing so. But as we are starting to see more and more guidelines drop, and there's certainly cause for optimism right now, tell us a little bit about, you know, what people can expect from your institutions this summer. And why don't we go reverse order? We'll start with Jeff.
Sure. So over the past year, we have taken advantage of the decreased visitation that I think we all saw to undertake some major renovations of the museum. So we are halfway through our second phase of renovations, which include the entire second floor of the museum. When they reopen, which we are looking forward to reopening them on in the first week of August, we will have 5 new gallery spaces, a new learning studio, and a new science lab, along with some public amenities that go along with that. Finally, we get restrooms up on our second floor. The exciting part for us is that we are going to be able to reopen later this summer with a whole new suite of exhibitions, 5 new exhibitions for people to enjoy, which will include some permanent, flexible, and always changing exhibitions that we call Objects and Their Stories, that focus on the arts, natural history, and antiquities. And they're interdisciplinary, so they all cover the full range, and they're derived from our collections. We've been working with the Stockbridge-Munsee community to develop a major new exhibition that we're opening in early August called Mahikanak, which focuses on the history from the deep past up to the present of the Stockbridge-Munsee community. And it's a step for us to be looking at some of the social equity and inclusion issues that have been facing all of us, while also celebrating a culture. So we're very excited about that partnership and that new exhibition. We're going to be opening 2 smaller galleries, one of them focusing on our Alexander Calder collection, and the other a solo show from one of the winners of our regional Art of the Hills arts exhibition with Sally Eagle, a photographer who does wonderful work focusing on both cultural and natural topics from around the world. We've got camps opening up live again in our new studio and science lab spaces. We've got outreach programs going out into the community. And we're developing pop-up museum capabilities so that we can get out to places. For those who are not ready for a centralized experience, we can decentralize and we can have presences throughout the Berkshires. So we've really got a 3-fold summer for everybody. Brand new exhibitions, which make the entire museum available, from the aquarium through our first floor exhibits and second floor exhibits, opportunities to engage in your communities, and ways to get people back into the museum for live learning experiences. So there's really, as we always do, something for everyone.
It's great to hear that you've exercised such creativity with thinking of different ways to reach different audiences and have different access points. We're truly privileged.
We've all learned to be very flexible over the past year and to think a little differently about the way we reach audiences.
Olivier, tell us a little more about what's happening up at the Clark this summer.
Yes, I think this summer will be as rich as any other year, I would say, at the Clark. We are continuing our Groundwork exhibition, which is this exhibition where we ask 6 artists from all over the country and all over the world to create site-specific work of art. And it's going through the entire year. It started midsummer last year, and it will continue until the fall. And the art is seen through the seasons, through the different weather, through the snow, through the sun. And it's on our 140 acres ground, and with a great series of trails. And this is one of the really major accomplishments this year for the Clark. It was the first time we were doing that, and it has been very successful in terms of public, as I said before. Then we opened this week an exhibition of 2 French artists called Lalanne, a woman, a wife and a husband. They never worked together on one piece, but one. They always exhibited together under the same name. And it's a very whimsical, very playful exhibition. It's mainly about animals. And yeah, you have to come. There is a big fish on the reflecting pool. There is plenty of other things in the galleries. The Lalanne exhibition, I think, will be a big success. We already have a lot of feedback from our public, and people are very happy. The next exhibition that will open mid-June will be Nikolai Ashtroop, which is a landscape artist from Norway. He's probably one of the most famous artists in Norway, but it is his first exhibition in the US. He was working at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. He was also a great gardener. He had an amazing house on a fjord. And it is part also of the exhibition. He was very, very interested by this relationship between his paintings and his garden, in a way like Monet. And it would be, I think, a discovery for everybody. It's really, he's a really great artist. Then we will have an exhibition on Durer print, Albrecht Durer, with this 16th century artist. We have the Clark has one of the best collection of Durer in the country, and we are exhibiting them this summer. Then this is not an exhibition; it's a collaboration. It's not something that the Clark is doing usually, but one of our great partner in Williamstown has always been the Williamstown Theatre Festival. Last year, when they were forced to close, we called them and said, okay, if you want to do something outdoor, we would be happy to do so. They were not ready. It was too difficult. It was also very complicated at this time. And they came back at the beginning of the year and said, okay, are you still okay with that? And we will have a big 4 weeks musical series of called ROW, R-O-W, on the reflecting pool. And it will be, I think, quite amazing. And I think they are opening the box office very soon. And that will be a sort of big change for the Clark to have for 4 weeks every night a representation from the Williamstown Theatre Festival. I think it is really a great opportunity for collaboration, and we are looking forward for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivier. And it's great to hear about that relationship with the Williamstown Theatre Festival getting back into place with things. I think we really felt last summer the importance of all of your institutions as you were able to operate and kind of anchored us through a difficult year. But it's so refreshing to have the performing arts back. You know, it's that relationship between the visual arts and the performing arts and your beautiful properties and campuses that makes this place what it is in the summer. Sue, you certainly have a wide variety of visual arts and performing arts going on at MoCA. Tell us about what to expect.
Yeah, it's great to be thinking forward and thinking about summer again. I also appreciate working with all of my colleagues last summer when we were opening to try to give our visitors to any of our properties sort of a consistent experience and what to expect. And that has really been a great outcome, I think, of sort of having to be flexible and pivot, but also to work together and sort of try to put a normalized expectation out for the summer. And I feel like that's going to happen again. And I know that the performing arts culturals as well took a cue from that, from our museum friends, and are doing the same thing. So the hope is that when visitors come, they will understand the experience regardless of which property they're going to. But we're excited for summer. I mentioned that on Memorial Day weekend, we will open Sky Space. Memorial Day weekend is typically our summer kickoff. It'll be a little smaller than some Memorial Days in past, but the Sky Space opening will be a very exciting moment for MoCA. We've been working on that all year. And there are dawn and dusk experiences as well as museum hour experiences. So it's a really exciting moment to have that. We also recently opened a beautiful, important and thoughtful exhibition by Glenn Kino in our largest Building 5 space. He really takes the history of protest and looks at Selma to Northern Ireland to all of the protests in between and sort of brings it to current day. It's an immersive installation that you sort of walk through and experience it. And he uses shadows as his material. So it's a beautiful new piece, and I look forward to having people see that again this summer. Also, sort of in light of the DEAI work we've been doing, we are having an exhibition open by Sean Leonardo, which has prompts that visitors will be asked to sort of think about and ponder and interact with, and that will start in the gallery outside of Kidspace, but it then filters throughout the whole museum. So we are interested in that. He will be around on June 19th during the museum hours, and there'll be some interactive opportunities on that day as well. We're going to have a community day on July 17th, where we'll be free for Berkshire County residents, and hopefully a great opportunity to get everyone back. No excuses, just come back and let's bring the community together. So there'll be activities outdoors. There'll be, the galleries will be open, and any Berkshire County resident can get in for free on that day. From the performing arts side of things, we are going to kick off with a performance by Juliana Barwick on Saturday, May 29th. Last year we were very creative, which I think this pandemic has forced us all to be, to look at our spaces and look at our assets and see what we could do. So we last year turned our load-in roll door of Building 5 into our stage and had the audience in one of our courtyards below. And we are going to do some of that again. We are sort of re-looking at that and utilizing that space. They ended up being really beautiful events, albeit for only 50 people. And now with the guidelines, we can have more people there. So It will be nice to see that courtyard a little bit fuller, but still filled with beautiful music. And we have other events coming up as well. We've been doing artist residency work in the winter for the performing arts. So we've been inviting companies who, can't get together, need to get together, come and do safe, protocol-oriented residencies. So we're continuing some of that through June and July to help artists sort of get back and create their work, finish their work, reevaluate their work, all of it, and just be together. As dancers, theater, musicians, all of them need to work with each other and be in person really to do that. So it's been a really beautiful opportunity to have artists with us working alongside each other and just exploring their work, but we'll continue that as well in the summer. And I think from, MoCA has space. We have outdoor spaces, indoor spaces. Our front courtyard will be filled with a community gathering space that Bright Ideas does. We'll have another tent out there so people can feel free to just come and sit in the courtyards. Lickety Split is going to open up with ice cream in the back courtyard. So we're hoping to see people really enjoy our campus and be there with us. So I think that's it.
Well, you can count my wife and I in for enjoying your campus. We live right down the road and spend a fair amount of time in that beautiful courtyard. Laurie, let me just remind before we turn to Laurie, all of our participants attendees feel free to submit questions through the chat function or the Q&A function, and we'll get to those as we can. Laurie, tell us more about the summer at Norman Rockwell.
Thank you, Jonathan. Sue, I cannot wait to come visit and all of your fresh new installations. Really, I think we need a busman's holiday for all of our staff to get around and visit each other's campuses. And if you haven't ever visited a James Turrell light space, you're in for a real treat. I can't wait to experience the new outdoor setting that you're setting up at MoCA. What I think of when we walk on the grounds here of Norman Rockwell Museum is you just exhale and you breathe. It is so beautiful. And we are really on a 36-acre campus arboretum with beautiful trees that were planted over a century ago by the original home on this estate. And just yesterday I was walking along our river walk, which moves along the Housatonic River and gives you a whole different view of Norman Rockwell's studio and these beautiful grounds. So the first thing people experience and enjoy when they come to Norman Rockwell Museum is this gorgeous setting. Last year we had a lot of picnicking on the grounds, and I expect that will continue. But beginning Memorial weekend, we will be reopening our outdoor Terrace Cafe, the Runaway Cafe. And this is just a beautiful spot to enjoy lunch or a cup of coffee or iced tea. And this year you can add a glass of wine or beer to your meal and just continue to have a relaxing afternoon. We'll be presenting a whole series of talks, artist programs, different performance programs on Tuesday evenings at the museum on the terrace. And we'll be presenting a hybrid offering. One of the advantages we've seen over this past year, which I think has been a phenomenon many of us have experienced, is so many more people have been able to attend our virtual programs than typically could attend in person. And so we'll continue to offer these programs virtually, as well as being able to assemble in person, which will be so nice. I've really missed gatherings and missed being able to talk with our artists in person, but we have connected with just hundreds of artists this past year in our virtual museum, and that will certainly continue this summer. So let me tell you a little bit more about the fantasy exhibition. If you grew up on fairy tales, if you loved Star Wars, if you are someone who has been a fan of superheroes and heroes and villains, you will love this exhibition this summer. There are, again, nearly 100 different artists. A real hallmark of this exhibition is that there will be historical works going back to the early Renaissance, as well as today's contemporary illustrators. So we'll see how St. George and the Dragon have been personified over years. If you were Grimm's fairy tale child, as I was, scared by your fairy tales, you'll be able to see artists renditions of that, and up to the moment of today's fantastical illustrators for gaming, for film, movies, just really an assemblage of artists that I think will carry us away into our imaginations. And as I mentioned earlier, the sculpture exhibition on the grounds will add to that. So whatever your comfort level, indoors or outdoors, there will be so much to enjoy at the museum this summer. And you'll be able to reserve your own spot because the online reservation system will continue that we all put in place last year. And I think that's been really helpful for people knowing they can get in at the time they'd like to come.
Great. Well, thank you for all of that, Laurie. Sounds like a very exciting summer coming up down in Stockbridge. And Susan, tell us a little bit about what's going to be happening just north of the Norman Rockwell.
Okay, and everyone's season sounds so exciting. I'm really inspired by all of you who've come before me. And we've got a very packed summer too. The house behind me, I'll lean down for a minute, that's actually the Mount. And it was a home built in 1902 by a very prolific and successful author, Edith Wharton. And Wharton was not only a great novelist and writer, she was an incredible designer and landscape gardener. So she actually designed the house that you're looking at, and it's surrounded by beautiful formal gardens, and then about 150 acres of wonderful walking trails and woodlands. Our grounds and gardens, we started this during the pandemic, will remain open to the public at no charge. And again, it's just a beautiful place of solace and clean air and beautiful vistas. And so we welcome you to come just to enjoy the grounds. Our Terrace Cafe opens on May 30th. That's a beautiful place to have a glass of wine or a bite to eat. The main house itself opened last weekend, and that is where you can come and learn a little bit more about Edith Wharton and her life and her works and her legacy and the time in which she lived. Children 18 and under are free every day. So we encourage you to bring the whole family. And once you've had your fill of history and architecture and gardens, we've just got a whole roster of other events. We will have about 30 sculptures placed throughout the property at an outdoor sculpture show. There are bird walks on Tuesday mornings where you can go out with experts from Mass Audubon into the swamp and the marsh and down to the lake, which are fabulous. We've got Lennox Yoga also on Tuesdays. There are monthly story walks for kids. We've taken one of our trails and we post a story every month, break it up so it encourages kids to both read and exercise, and that is free. And then we've got 3 areas that we are going to convert into spaces to play outdoor live music. And we're collaborating with Close Encounters with Music, Jazz and Classics for Change. We'll probably curate our own musical series of sort of contemporary jazz music. And then Berkshire Opera Company will be also hosting a performance. We've rented a huge 140 by 120 foot tent. So our very popular lecture series, Biography and History, rather than cramming everyone into our auditorium, we will be hosting them outdoors under a tent, and where we can safely seat, even at the 6-foot distancing, about 100 people. So we're excited that that's going to return. We'll be doing a poetry slam festival sometime in July. There will be dance on the grounds every week, partnering with Berkshire Pulse, so that if you are interested in outdoor dance, I'm sure they'd love to have you enroll. And then in November, our immersive sound and light show, Nightwood, will be coming back. And that was hugely popular last year, and we're looking forward to it. We also are pre-registration at the moment. The walk-ups are obviously accepted as well. And we're excited to see the limitations slowly lift, but we're going to take it slowly and carefully and follow the lead of our governor and be in discussions with our other cultural peers as we figure out how to navigate what seems to be a rapidly changing, in an encouraging way, sort of environment. So that's it. And I would say one other thing, all of our 2019 weddings have moved into 2020, 19 and 20, I guess, have moved into 20 and 21. Normally we don't host weddings in July and August, but there was no place to put them. So starting this weekend, we will be having a wedding every Saturday from now through mid-October. So please check our website, and we do have to close during those afternoons. So
There definitely will be lots of weddings in the Berkshires in the coming few months. Lots of couples that unfortunately had to push it off a year or at least have the celebration a year later. But so I just want to remind all of our listeners, whether you live in the Berkshires or you're planning to visit the Berkshires, that is so much content that you all just explained collectively. And that's really just 5 of our major institutions in the Berkshires. So much to do here this summer, such a variety of things. And I also just want to footnote that the number of collaborations that you all cited collectively, just in your brief descriptions of what's happening, are tremendous. Obviously within the arts world itself, but even with local organizations and connecting back to your communities, I think that's kind of what makes things so special in the region. And you all do that so well with your work. So let's change gears a little bit. It's not the most fun topic to talk about, guidelines and restrictions, but it's still the world that we live in and will be for some time. But I think it's important to have a little bit of a discussion around that. Obviously, so much happening at your properties, but things will feel a little bit differently. The experience isn't exactly what it would be in a typical year, in terms of the way it plays out upon arrival. So knowing that a lot of our listeners here are planning to visit your properties, planning to take advantage of some of the great programming you've already outlined, why don't we talk a little bit about what they might expect? And instead of calling on you individually, why don't we just kind of float around if any of you want to comment on what you're expecting at your properties. Obviously, the announcement from the CDC yesterday is going to set the runway of some changes happening in the coming weeks. We haven't seen a response yet in Massachusetts to that. And obviously, I'm sure a lot of institutions are going to continue to, err on the side of caution with public safety and health and wellness, as they should. But so tell us a little bit about what you're expecting, what a visitor to your properties might experience in the coming weeks. Feel free to jump right in if one of you wants to start.
I'll get us started. So, I think it's been mentioned across the panel that there have been reservation protocols in place. Those were following state guidance, and that we've been very happy with the way we're able to create family pod experiences, so that you essentially get a private, insular experience that allows you to safely move through the museum. We recognize that we're going to start to be able to open up just a little bit more, especially for those who are vaccinated. So with our second floor opening up, that creates more space for us, which means that more people will be able to enjoy the museum. So we run things like a train. One family comes in, or one group comes in that's considered a bubble, and they start their journey, and then we're able to follow another one behind them about a half an hour later, so that they don't get to intersect. It's our hope that once we open up the 5 new galleries on the second floor this summer with the variety of experiences that are there, that we will be able to add more cars to the train, and more people will be able to be enjoying the museum as they choose. What we don't have is we don't have the outdoor space that the other organizations have. So as an urban campus in the middle of downtown Pittsfield, we can't spread out on the outside. So we are looking forward to creating more and varied experiences within the museum. And I really believe that as we start to see some of these restrictions lift a little bit, that we're going to be able to make this experience available to more and more people. So we're very excited about that.
Any other thoughts from any of you on what visitors might expect with the experience on your campuses?
Yeah, I'll just build on both what Jeff and Susan said. I think, the announcements of yesterday are so recent that none of us have had a chance to reconsider our visitor guidelines collectively. Our other Sue Killam mentioned that we've all worked together to have consistent experience so that when visitors come, they know what to expect and the behaviors at each of our institutions collectively. So I believe we'll be continuing that collaboration so that we can really understand the safety guidelines and how things are opening up. I think what's been clear is that there's a lot more freedom outdoors now, and masking, if you can be by yourself or with your family pod, is no longer necessary outside. We're taking it more slowly inside. I think what Susan Wissler said, we follow the governor's guidelines. We've been so fortunate with Secretary Sutters and Governor Baker to have the care of their professional team really guide what's safe for the majority. So when you're in a space with public, we want everyone to be safe. So in our case, it's really premature to know how those details will be relaxed indoors. But I think, as Jonathan noted, things are changing quickly, and I know we'll all be responsive.
Yeah, Laurie, I'll just jump in after that. I couldn't agree more. I think that at this point, we're keeping our protocols and our, following the guidelines of Massachusetts, and have done that all along. And so we're just going to continue to follow what Massachusetts is guiding. And I think that, things will loosen up a little bit already. Capacities have loosened up a little bit. I mentioned that with our events, we'll be able to have a few more people. Still socially distanced, still requiring that 6 feet distancing protocol. So we're not fully back to no protocols yet, but we are definitely feeling that we can stretch our muscles a little bit, stretch our arms out a little bit, and welcome people in. We are maintaining time ticketing as well. We are allowing walk-ups, but we're maintaining time tickets. And right now we ask everyone to wear a mask, and I think we're going to keep doing that so long as everyone feels it's appropriate and along this really to keep everyone healthy and safe. And we're encouraging everyone to get vaccinated as well. I think our staff is doing a great job, but we're also really trying to, encourage as many people as that can to get out there and get vaccinated, and that will help us move forward.
So you also raised an interesting thought in my mind about families. We know that young children can't yet be vaccinated, and schools are maintaining masking for students through the end of the school year. So we do need to think about all of our visitors and how to keep the majority safe. So we'll be waiting for those governor guidelines. Our state's done so well. And I know they're thinking top of mind about museums. In fact, they talk with us regularly to hear how we're doing and what the needs of our visitors and patrons are. So we'll keep you all posted. Check our websites. That's the best place to find information on visiting.
I would add too, I just think it's important for our listeners to know that going all the way back over a year ago, that it was Laurie with the Norman Rockwell Museum and Olivier with the Clark, Sue, some of your team members at MoCA, your institutions were heavily involved, not just locally, but statewide, on coming up with what the guidelines might be at historical sites and in museums and on those properties. And I know that it made a big difference for the Berkshires with allowing more things to happen in the past year. So I just want our listeners to know that your voices extend well beyond the Berkshires and really do a service to all of us living in Massachusetts. So why don't we switch gears a little bit, just kind of thinking about bigger ripple effect. A lot of our listeners are small business owners. Small business owners are in a tough spot right now. They've gone through a difficult year. I'm talking about retailers and restaurants and lodging properties, bed and breakfasts. It's been a difficult year, but now they're in this position of being encouraged to open back up, and there's going to be people coming. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. What do you think? Not that you have a crystal ball, but what are you expecting this summer in terms of activity and a return to activity levels that are a bit more normal? And what do you think the ripple effect might be for some of those small business owners that are hoping to start to get back on their feet?
Well, I could start on this. I think that one of the most surprising things these last weeks have been for us when we tried to book hotels room for our visitors that were coming as a group, or the board, or people that are coming on a regular basis, and they were resuming their transportation or travel to the Berkshires. The hotels were full until September around town. In Williamstown and North Adams, it's quite difficult to find a room at I would say the weekends are very full for the next 3 months. I don't know if it is reflecting the next 3 months entirely and perfectly, but at least we see that already happening. I mean, there is a lot of booking for hotels and for hospitality places. But that is, and I think that what we see also with our friends that are not in town, that are not usual, that are not all year round habitant of the Berkshires, the one that are coming from the rest of the countries are already they already have booked their ticket to come. I mean, it seems that there is a sort of quick rebound about this, but I could be wrong. But I have this feeling that the people are really happy to come back.
Yeah, I agree with that, Olivier. And what I might note too is that our small businesses can really take heart from the success that our museums have had in being open for this past year safely, and have been able to accommodate both visitors and our employees and keep everyone healthy during the hardest months of the pandemic. And now that distancing requirements are easing a little bit, and businesses with small spaces who have not maybe been able to welcome patrons back into the space will, I think, be able to feel more comfort and flexibility to, have their patrons be able to come in and have a meal rather than drive up and pick up a meal, or maybe be able to go in and browse in a bookstore rather than pre-order your book and pick it up at the door. This, of course, will depend on your own comfort level, but I think the experience of our museums show that people can be in indoor spaces safely, just like we've seen in our grocery stores. We're also seeing, I have to say, a nice response to our summer seasonal hiring, which typically picks up this time of year. And I know we're reading a lot of stories about it's hard to find labor, and that's not been our experience. We have welcomed some just incredibly talented people into our visitor services area, our galleries, security, our museum store, the spaces that just get a lot busier in the summer. And the one shift too that I think is making a big difference is we had to place capacity on our gallery spaces before, and this is something we've now opened up, that people can self-regulate the distancing, and we are hopeful we can actually just open up the whole gallery plan so that you don't have to navigate one way through, although that's worked well. But people like choice, and I think that bodes well for businesses who welcome patrons into small spaces. People are eager to get out and do things. So I'm seeing a good season ahead for the county.
I agree as well. I mean, we've been hearing from some of the cultural institutions here, but that's just part of the mosaic of fantastic things that happen in the Berkshires, whether it's the natural beauty that's here, the outdoor activities that are provided. If you're a foodie, the food scene is absolutely fantastic. And I think we've recognized just from some of the real estate trends that people have begun to recognize the Berkshires as this is the type of place that you want to be in. And I think that bodes really well for the type of folks who are going to be wanting to come and spend more time here with us, because there's this just incredible diversity of opportunities for engagement, both indoors, outdoors, culturally. It really is boding well for the Berkshires being the type of place that, as we come out of the pandemic and post-pandemic, that this is recognized as the type of place that people want to be in, whether it's living or visiting. That's always been true for the Berkshires, but I think it's even more visible now. And I think we're going to see an uptick across the board. I'm very optimistic about how we come out of this with strength.
Yeah, I agree. I would say for North Adams too, I know that the city didn't plan any of their city events last year, but are planning to do that. They do them this year. So I just think more and more is happening, which will get people out and about and around. And even looking into the future, I have the bike path construction right outside my window, which will also go to MoCA eventually. So I think that, we're building an ecosystem here that is well beyond just cultural, but like brings us all together. So I'm excited for all of that future. So hang in.
I see an interesting question in the chat about the timed ticketing. Will this be a long-term practice? What are the benefits, drawbacks? I think this is a really interesting question because I'll speak for my own institution. It was quite a challenge for us to imagine asking people to buy timed tickets for a visit. Although some museums with special exhibitions, as you know, the large urban museums in the cities have had time tickets for a major exhibition for decades. But there's been a nice benefit to it, both for the visitor who knows they're going to be able to actually come in at the time that they want to, that they plan to arrive, especially when we've had capacity limits and sadly last year had to turn many people away at the door because we could not fit more in under the COVID guidelines. But there's a lot more flexibility now. So as many of my colleagues have said, we are able also to accommodate walk-in visitors. So I think it's a nice flexibility, both for the visitor, and there's been a really nice benefit, I think, for performing arts. They know who their patrons are and they know who loves to come and be there on which days of the week and what kinds of performances they like to see. And for museums, it's always been a very anonymous activity to not know who was visiting. And it's really nice to be able to get to know our visitors and be able to stay in touch with them. And so I think people will be able to do a combination of the flexibility of a walk-in, but also the privileges and known accommodation of making a reservation.
Yeah, I can chime in on that too. We were talking about doing reservations before the pandemic. So the pandemic just kind of fast forwarded our plans, but I do think it's an option that will remain. It will not be the only option maybe, but it will, that option will definitely remain. And it does have some benefits for those who want to plan and make sure they can go. There's so much to see and do all over. So I think it is a helpful tool.
Anybody else have any thoughts on the time ticketing?
I would agree with both what Laurie and Sue said. I mean, it has been nice to have that level of predictability, but we also want to make it easy and accessible for visitors. And so I think we will continue with the hybrid model, walk-ins plus time ticketing.
Yeah, I agree.
So, let's expand on that a little bit, because I think, one of the things that we've all learned in the pandemic is that there will be natural innovations that came out of this, because we've had to pivot, we've had to rethink things, reapproach things. And obviously your institutions are some of the most creative places in the world. So I'm sure that you've probably learned some other best practices in the last year. Time ticketing being one example. Are there other examples of things that you've begun to do differently as a result of the pandemic that might be a more permanent practice?
Well, go ahead, Laurie.
No, go ahead, Susan.
Oh, I was just going to say something that you mentioned earlier. We've been dragging our feet in terms of getting into the online virtual event sort of business, and COVID forced us to do that if we were going to remain connected with our audiences. And that has proven to be just an enormously successful way of expanding our reach and also our ability to attract talent from all over the world. And that's been something that definitely we will keep.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to expand on, that very concept. At the Norman Rockwell Museum, we have been deliberately building out our virtual museum and digital programming capacity for really a couple of decades, both from making our collections accessible to people from anywhere in the world, but in recent years, broadcasting all of our programming. The opportunity to pivot to that, in fact, we pivoted full-time to that when we were closed last year for the 4 months, and had a phenomenal amount of programming right into the schools, with teachers, with families, with their children at home. And with our programs, our artist programs, we were able to connect with artists all over the country who we would not have been able to fly in to Stockbridge and, house for the 3 days it takes to ask someone to come from California and do a program. And yet we would have maybe 600 people signing up for a program and representing many different countries around the world as well. So this really just, I think, gave affirmation to our experimentation that we'd been doing or steadily building, that our the virtual arm of Norman Rockwell Museum is very much here to stay. And it's a way that we'll be broadcasting on a range of channels, all of the programming that we do, and it will present a nice hybrid. If you come and have that wonderful, intimate, personal experience, but you will be able to have access and not be deprived of something you might really like to hear from an artist, or take a very in-depth virtual tour and literally look at every single painting on the wall in 3D with all of the archival materials, the videos, the reference photography, maybe a model's story, very rich content that will build out an experience so you can enjoy Norman Rockwell Museum from anywhere.
Yeah, I think the virtual programming is something that everyone is going to be looking at. I think that our educational programs that we did online over the year are definitely going to continue in a virtual way, perhaps an in-person way as well, but the virtual option will be there. And to pick up on the information bit of it, like we launched a Solowit app where you can go through the Solowit galleries all on your phone from anywhere. Look, like you said, look at different paintings, get backgrounds. And we've really sort of looked at that ability, that new way of communicating with our visitors and patrons in that digital world, which I think they're finding they want to be in as well. And the other thing I would say is, I think we collaborated and communicated more as us culturals, but also even with our community. Like people just picked up the phone and said, oh my gosh, what are you doing? How do we do it? And not, in the Berkshires, but also beyond. And I hope that that continues. So.
I'll add one thing to that conversation. The reach that we learned to use very effectively using web-based communication has been absolutely fantastic. But one of the big lessons that we learned from this was about our nimbleness. In the virtual world, you need to be continually creating new ways to engage audiences, new ideas, new content. And it was a very different pace than the museum world had traditionally been used to. So as we look towards our future exhibitions, we're building lots of modularity and flexibility so that we can continue to introduce these new ideas very rapidly. I think this is something we're seeing in the museum world across the world right now. This idea that the exhibition that takes 2 and 3 years to develop doesn't have the immediacy that we might need all of the time. So being able to build that immediacy into our experiences is something that we intend to continue both virtually, but we want to be able to continue to offer regularly changing, updatable, current and meaningful engagements for folks, which means that we've kind of changed our in-house model as well to match what's happening in that faster paced creative world that's happening virtually.
We are coming up on 11 o'clock, and I want to give you all a chance just kind of for a final word as well. But I do want to just follow up real quick on, Sue commented about the collaboration that's kind of been born out of this experience the last year. Do any of you have any thoughts on that? Continued stronger collaboration, or there's actually been a question about collaborative ticketing or memberships between institutions. Is there anything there to think forward about?
Well, we have already, for some of us, some collaborative ticketing. We have common tickets, I think, with some of these, our institutions. I think collaboration was already in many of our usual way to work, but in fact, this pandemic has increased a lot this collaboration and also the need of it. And it has been a very, very positive moment for this. I think the collaboration, also because we were by a certain way by ourselves and we were cut from the rest of the world, we were probably more focused on our area. And because of that, I think we probably developed things that that will last in terms of collaboration. More and more.
I think that's nicely said, Olivier. And Jonathan, as you know, this cultural group with our performing arts colleagues, a decade ago, created the bow wave of the creative economy of the Berkshires. And so there is a deeply rooted collaborative spirit between us. And I think what changed this year was it pivoted very much to operational activities, which was a great help to have the support systems to make the decisions to be able to reopen safely. And I know we're all excited to probably move on to a bit more programmatic collaboration, but as Olivier mentioned, there are many joint ticketing ventures, and I think all of us have provisions for making visits affordable for our local residents. We implemented a pay what you wish, pay what you choose opportunity this year to make Norman Rockwell Museum completely accessible, particularly keeping in mind people who may have lost their jobs during the pandemic or had major shifts. And I think, we're all very committed to our equity and justice work in how we think about making our campuses accessible for many different audiences, whether it's the virtual or whether it's economic accessibility or the ideas and creativity that our organizations inspire. So I think we'll see collaboration continue to weave a very colorful fabric.
That is great to hear. And I mean, the Berkshires is often cited by our colleagues across the state as being one of the most collaborative places in the region, the New England region. But I really think that it's within the creative economy that some of those strongest collaborations exist. And I know a lot of work's been done in recent years to find ways to create more equitable access and more community access to your institution. So I think it's important that people are aware of that. And it's really another testament to the work that you do. So we are running up on 11 o'clock. I want to give you each a moment if you want to share a closing thought or plug another program or something, but whatever you'd like to do. And we'll start with Susan.
Oh gosh, no, we're ready for the season, excited about it. And I think it's going to be a terrific year. So I'm very excited.
Great. I think we share the same optimism at One Berkshire.
Yeah.
Laurie.
I just want to thank all of our patrons, our community, the people who ventured out and visited this past year and trusted that the museum would be an inspiring and safe place for them, and especially the patrons who supported not only us, but all of this group. For everyone who was able to have a free visit, there was a patron donating support to keep the museum going and make that visit possible. And that's a great hallmark here in the Berkshires, is the incredible supportive community that keeps us all going. So my thanks and hat tip to all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think the MoCA staff really rallied around opening and welcoming and doing it in all new ways. And I thank all of you because you've been great partners in this. So I look forward to seeing people at MoCA, and I love that people joined in and want to be a part of what's going on. So thanks.
Olivier?
Yeah, I would like to and I share the thought that my colleagues just expressed, but I think there is also something that I rediscovered, and many of us rediscovered during this year, that we were very important to people. I remember when we reopened our institution in July last year, I never saw so much gratitude in our public eyes, and it was very moving. We just rediscovered that we were useful. Yeah.
Very well put. Jeff?
We are certainly useful, Olivier. And I think what we're seeing here is that there's such a diversity of opportunities for things for people to do while they are here. That the culturals are, of course, a big draw for the Berkshires. But as we get those people back engaging with us, they're also going to be engaging with our local businesses. They're going to be enjoying the outdoors. It's all part of one larger ecosystem. And we're happy to be doing our part in that to make sure that there are engaging ways for people to be coming into our towns. And we really look forward to continue our collaborations with our cultural partners and welcoming people back to the Berkshires, because we're doing it right, we're doing it safely, and there's just so much going on that tide is going to rise for everybody.
Well, thank you for that, Jeff. And I think that concludes our conversation this morning. I would like to thank everybody that participated, our audience, for logging on this morning. And hopefully this was a helpful conversation. You learned some more about what's happening. I would encourage all of you to take advantage of some of the great things you heard about from our institutions. I want to thank our team at One Berkshire, Christine Hoyt and Katie Brelsper, that have helped with just the execution of this event this morning, and the rest of our team at One Berkshire as well for the promotion and all the legwork. And then lastly, I want to thank this panel. This was a great conversation. Such a sense of optimism, which I think we all need and are eager to hear more of. And then just in general, I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing. Wish you all good luck this coming season, and hopefully we'll be able to circle back in the fall at some point and talk about how the season went and how successful it was.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks for bringing us together.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan.
It was our pleasure. And
seeing you all. Bye.
And for our audience, look for more One Berkshire virtual town halls. We have one coming up on outdoor recreation in a couple of weeks, and get signed up for that. More information is available about that at oneberkshire.com. And I'll close by just saying it's going to be a beautiful weekend in the Berkshires. Go out and support these institutions. Go out and enjoy the weather. Spend some money at small businesses, and just enjoy this beautiful place that we live in. Be safe and be well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
everyone.
Bye, everyone.